Looks like Prince George and Princess Charlotte have a small disagreement. Look at the Queen Consort Camilla, one tweeted. Why did Charlotte say when she turned back around, it was wow? Ow? Cow?
Royal Guard overhears Camilla demanding Princess Charlotte's removal. His reaction halts everything. Have you ever wondered what happens when loyalty collides with truth behind the gilded doors of royalty? What would you do if protecting your career meant sacrificing an innocent child's future? On a freezing November morning at Windsor Castle, one security officer found himself trapped between silence and courage, a choice that would ignite a firestorm within the most powerful family in Britain.
They're one of the most famous, wealthy and controversial families in the world. And in a time of growing inequality, some people are asking, why does Britain still have a royal family?
What James Mitchell overheard that morning wasn't just palace gossip. It was a calculated plan to erase a beloved princess from public view. Stay with us as we unravel this explosive tale of bravery, betrayal, and a 10-year-old girl who taught the world what royal duty truly means. The guard who became invisible. James Mitchell wasn't your ordinary palace guard. 12 years of impeccable service had earned him something more valuable than respect: invisibility. 3 generations of Mitchells had stood watch over British royalty, each carrying the family torch of discretion and dedication. James wore his uniform like a second skin, understanding that his job wasn't merely about physical protection. It was about becoming furniture, present, yet unseen. That particular morning arrived like countless others. Dawn barely colored the horizon when James stepped through Windsor Castle's staff entrance at 5 o'clock sharp. His post that day placed him in the East Wing corridor, a stretch of marble and history that typically saw little traffic. These hallways connected private sitting rooms where family members retreated from public scrutiny. James had learned long ago that the quietest posts often held the heaviest secrets. Around mid-morning, the silence shattered. Footsteps approached with purpose, heels striking marble with authority. James straightened instinctively, eyes fixed forward as training demanded. Queen Consort Camilla swept into view, her expression set with determination. Behind her, Lady Susan Peaton struggled to match the pace. James became stone as they passed. The blue drawing room door closed behind them with a definitive thud. Minutes crawled by. Then another figure approached, Miss Eleanor Thompson, the governess responsible for Princess Charlotte's education. She carried an art portfolio, transporting materials between lesson spaces. She knocked on the drawing room door once, then twice. No response came. After a moment's hesitation, Miss Thompson turned the handle and stepped inside. The door didn't close completely behind her. What happened next would haunt James for weeks. Camilla's voice cut through the air like a blade, sharp enough to reach the corridor beyond. The Queen Consort was demanding Princess Charlotte's removal from official engagements, citing excessive public attention as justification. She wanted the child pulled from the Christmas broadcast, the Commonwealth service, every major appearance. Her tone left no room for discussion. This wasn't a suggestion. It was an order delivered with royal authority. James felt his pulse quicken. Princess Charlotte had captured Britain's heart with her genuine warmth and natural grace. At just 10 years old, she represented hope for the monarchy. The public adored her because her kindness seemed effortless and real. James had witnessed it firsthand. The way she remembered staff members' names, asked about their families, treated everyone with equal respect. Just the previous week, she'd inquired about his daughter's surgery recovery, a small gesture that meant everything to a worried father. Camilla spoke of imbalance, of the child needing to understand her place in the family hierarchy. The words dripped with resentment, thinly veiled as concern for protocol. Miss Thompson's trembling voice attempted diplomacy, reminding the Queen Consort that scheduling decisions belonged to the King and the Princess of Wales. Camilla's response left no ambiguity. She would take the matter to the King herself, framing it as necessary correction, rather than personal vendetta. The drawing room door suddenly swung wider. Miss Thompson emerged first, her complexion drained of color, hands gripping the portfolio like a lifeline. Unshed tears glistened in her eyes as she hurried past James. Lady Susan appeared next, discomfort written across her features. Then Camilla herself stepped into the corridor. She paused, studying James with calculating eyes. For several heartbeats, they held each other's gaze. James maintained his professional mask, expression blank, but Camilla hadn't survived decades in royal circles by missing subtleties. Her eyes narrowed before she turned to Lady Susan with a final instruction about discretion and confidentiality. The words carried weight and threat in equal measure. Then both women departed, heels clicking away until silence reclaimed the corridor. James remained at his post, but inside, his mind churned with conflict. He had heard something never intended for his ears, knowledge that could damage a child he'd sworn to protect. The weight of impossible choices. The remainder of James's shift passed in mechanical routine. His body went through familiar motions while his thoughts spiraled elsewhere. When his shift concluded, James didn't head straight home. Instead, he wandered the castle grounds, boots crunching through fallen leaves. Home offered no relief. Sarah, his wife of 15 years, recognized trouble the moment she walked through the door. James wanted desperately to unburden himself, but confidentiality agreements bound him tighter than chains. Sarah didn't push for details. Instead, she offered wisdom wrapped in love, reminding him that conscience mattered more than comfort. Sleep eluded James that night. He stared at the ceiling, weighing options that all seemed to lead toward disaster. Approaching his direct supervisor would likely result in orders to forget everything. Gaining direct access to the king proved impossible for someone at his rank. By dawn, James had identified only one viable path forward: Sir Malcolm Thornberry, the king's private secretary, a man whose reputation for fairness preceded him. Fortune intervened when James was assigned security for a private library event that Sir Malcolm attended. As the gathering concluded, James made his split-second decision. He approached respectfully, requesting 2 minutes for a sensitive matter. Sir Malcolm studied him with eyes that seemed to measure a man's entire character in seconds. Then came the invitation to walk together to the private secretary's office. Sir Malcolm's office embodied dignified tradition: floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, organized papers, a silver-framed photograph of the king. James was given 60 seconds to justify the conversation. He chose his words with surgical precision, explaining the partially open door, the conversation involving Princess Charlotte, and Camilla's demands for the child's removal from public engagements. Sir Malcolm's expression remained neutral, but his eyes sharpened with focused attention. The private secretary's response came measured and cautious. James's claims carried serious implications, but bringing such information forward violated protocol in ways that could destroy his career. Why bypass the chain of command? James's answer was simple and devastating. This wasn't about protocol. This was about a child's welfare being sacrificed to adult jealousy. He'd served long enough to know that conventional channels would bury the truth rather than expose it. The warning came stark and clear. Investigation would draw attention. Camilla would demand to know who spoke. James's name would surface eventually. His career might not survive the fallout. James accepted these consequences without hesitation, stating his certainty about what he'd witnessed. Sir Malcolm nodded slowly, promising discreet personal investigation. One final caution hung in the air. If James had exaggerated anything, severe punishment would follow. James met the older man's gaze steadily, repeating his absolute certainty. The following days stretched into torture. James performed his duties on autopilot, constantly expecting summons for disciplinary action. Then came the sudden schedule change. He was reassigned to the North Terrace, far from family quarters. His stomach dropped. He was being isolated, removed from proximity to information. But no dismissal letter arrived. On the fourth day, unusual activity erupted in the courtyard. Black vehicles disgorged senior advisors to the king. That evening, whispers spread about a lengthy private family meeting with raised voices behind closed doors. 2 more agonizing days passed before Captain Richards summoned James to his office. James walked that corridor feeling like a condemned man. He knocked, entered, and found not only his captain waiting, but Sir Malcolm standing by the window. Sir Malcolm turned, beginning with gratitude for James bringing a sensitive matter to his attention. A thorough investigation had been conducted. Miss Thompson confirmed every detail. Lady Susan had also acknowledged the conversation occurred exactly as described. Sir Malcolm couldn't discuss family meeting details, but he could confirm that Princess Charlotte's schedule would remain unchanged. All planned engagements would proceed. Furthermore, the king had expressed appreciation for James's loyalty and discretion. James would return to his regular post with no disciplinary notation. Yet one more piece demanded sharing. Princess Charlotte had been given a simplified version of events. She knew someone in the household had defended her when it mattered. She'd asked him to convey her thanks, saying that knowing someone cared enough to speak up meant more than any public engagement ever could. But a final warning tempered the relief. Difficult days lay ahead. The Queen Consort was displeased that her instructions had been overruled, even more displeased that her private conversation had become known to others. She didn't yet know specifically who reported it, but she was trying to find out. James needed to be careful. When shadows turned to light. Weeks passed with deceptive normalcy. James returned to the East Wing, resuming familiar routines. But subtle changes rippled beneath the surface. Lady Susan no longer made eye contact. Other ladies-in-waiting would silence conversations when James approached. Then his work schedule was suddenly altered. Night shifts from midnight to 8 in the morning. The change devastated James's family life. He and Sarah became ships passing silently. The East Wing transformed at night into something almost haunting. During these lonely hours, James questioned whether speaking up had been worth this price. 3 weeks into the new schedule, James noticed lights burning in the Queen Consort's private study well past 3 in the morning. This pattern repeated several nights. Then James saw the visitor departing one night, Gerald Peaton, Lady Susan's husband, a political consultant with extensive tabloid connections. James's blood ran cold. Over the following week, James noticed photographers appearing more frequently outside castle gates. Newspaper articles began questioning Princess Charlotte's health and ability to handle royal pressure. James recognized exactly where these manufactured stories originated. Camilla hadn't abandoned her plan. She'd simply chosen a different approach. James began documenting what he observed in a small journal: dates and times of midnight meetings, photographer appearances, newspaper clippings. Then one night in late December, everything changed. Raised voices erupted from Camilla's study. The door flew open violently. Gerald Peaton stormed out, his face flushed crimson. Behind him, Camilla threatened to find someone else if Peaton couldn't handle this simple task. Peaton protested that genuine public affection couldn't be fought with planted stories. Camilla's response dripped with venom. He wasn't trying hard enough. She wanted Charlotte removed from every major event. Peaton suddenly noticed James standing at his post. Their eyes met. He knew he'd been overheard. Camilla noticed James for the first time. She stared at him for a long moment, asking how long he'd been standing there. Then something clicked in her memory. She asked if he'd been the guard in the East Wing that November day. James's heart pounded, but his voice remained steady. She studied him, then stepped back into her study and closed the door firmly. James knew he was in serious trouble. The next day, Captain Richards called. James was accused of photographing private castle areas and possibly selling information to the press. He was placed on immediate suspension. Within hours, his locker was searched. They found the journal. To investigators without context, it looked suspicious. James tried explaining he'd been documenting evidence of a campaign against Princess Charlotte, but without proof, his explanation sounded paranoid. Within 2 days, formal charges were being prepared. James faced not just dismissal, but potential criminal prosecution. Sir Malcolm visited James at home on the 3rd day. This situation was bad, he admitted. Camilla had constructed a compelling case. Sir Malcolm suggested there might be one person capable of helping, Princess Charlotte herself. But asking a child to testify against a senior royal would be unprecedented. James shook his head firmly. He refused to put Charlotte in that position. That night, Sarah spoke. "Let them call Charlotte." James protested. Sarah cut him off. "You have a daughter too. Emma needs her father. If Princess Charlotte can help, she should be given that choice." The next morning, Sarah went to the castle to speak with Miss Thompson. Inside the governess's apartment, Sarah explained everything. Miss Thompson revealed that Princess Charlotte knew about James, that she'd been asking about him, wondering if he was all right. "He's not all right," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "He's going to prison for doing the right thing." Miss Thompson spoke with Charlotte later that day. The governess told Charlotte a truthful version of what had happened. Charlotte listened with wide eyes. "Is Officer Mitchell the one who helped me?" she asked. "Yes," Miss Thompson confirmed. "And now Grandmother is trying to hurt him." Charlotte was quiet for a moment, then looked up with an expression far older than her 10 years. "What can I do?" "You could tell the truth about what you've experienced," Miss Thompson explained. "But speaking up might make things difficult. Your grandmother might be angry." "I don't care if she's angry," Charlotte said firmly. "Officer Mitchell protected me. Now I should protect him. That's what royal duty means, isn't it?" Within hours, the king demanded a private meeting with Princess Charlotte, Miss Thompson, and Sir Malcolm. Charlotte sat in a chair slightly too large for her, back straight, hands folded. She looked small but determined. The king asked her to tell him truthfully what she'd noticed. Charlotte took a breath and began. She told him about newspaper stories that hurt her feelings, about overhearing her grandmother saying Charlotte needed to be less visible, about photographers who appeared whenever she was doing something that could be painted negatively. "I'm not stupid, grandfather," Charlotte said, her voice steady despite trembling hands. "I know when someone's trying to make me look bad, and I know why. Grandmother doesn't like that people pay attention to me." The king asked about Officer Mitchell. "I know he tried to help me," Charlotte said, "and now I hear he's in trouble. But grandfather, he only did what I was taught a royal should do. He protected someone who needed protecting. If he's punished for that, what does that teach me about honor and duty?" The king walked to the window. The room fell silent. Finally, he turned back. "You're very brave, Charlotte, and very wise for someone so young." "I'm frightened," Charlotte admitted. But Officer Mitchell was probably frightened too. Being brave doesn't mean not being frightened. It means doing the right thing even when you are. The king nodded. "You're quite right." He looked at Sir Malcolm. "I want a full review of the charges against Officer Mitchell. I want to see Gerald Peaton's phone records. If there's evidence of collusion to plant false stories about my granddaughter, I want to know about it." The next day, events unfolded rapidly. James received official notice that all charges were dropped. He was offered reinstatement with formal apology, substantial pay increase, and transfer to daytime position. Gerald Peaton's contract was terminated. Lady Susan resigned. Most significantly, the palace announced that Princess Charlotte would maintain her full schedule with additional responsibilities. James returned to work in early January. On his first morning back, he encountered Princess Charlotte and her family. When Charlotte saw James, her face lit up. "Officer Mitchell," she said clearly. "It's good to see you back." The Princess of Wales smiled warmly. "Yes, it's wonderful to have you back with us. We're very grateful for your service." As the family passed, Charlotte gave him a small wave. simple but carrying immense weight. Months later, on a warm April day, James was assigned to security for a private garden party. Princess Charlotte walked over with a book. "Officer Mitchell, may I show you something?" She opened it to reveal a watercolor painting showing a castle with a lone figure standing guard. "I painted this," she explained. "It's about people who protect others even when it's hard. When I'm older, I want people like you around. People who will tell me the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Will you promise me that?" James knelt to her eye level. "Your Royal Highness, I promise that as long as I serve this household, I will always act with honesty and with your best interests at heart." Charlotte smiled. "Good, because I think I'm going to need people like you." Years later, when Princess Charlotte was 16 and beginning official duties, she requested James as part of her personal security detail. When asked why, she gave a simple answer. "Officer Mitchell taught me that true loyalty means protecting people even at personal cost." On James's 20th anniversary of service, he received a Royal Victorian Medal from the King himself. Princess Charlotte, now 19, was present. When formalities concluded, she approached. "Officer Mitchell, do you remember the day in the garden?" "I remember, Your Royal Highness. I still have that painting," she said. "And I still remember what you taught me, that honor means nothing if we don't act with honor." That evening, James went home to Sarah and told her about the ceremony. "Was it worth it?" Sarah asked. "All the pain, the fear, the uncertainty." James thought about Princess Charlotte, about the strength she'd shown, about the person she'd become. "Yes," he said finally. "It was worth it. Every moment of it." The story of James Mitchell became more than castle gossip. It became a teaching example, used in training for new royal household staff. Proof that individual choices matter, that standing up for what's right can make a real difference. And in a castle filled with centuries of history, one guard's courage had written a chapter that would be remembered for generations. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that courage lives in ordinary people facing extraordinary choices, make sure to like and subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear that doing the right thing, even when it's terrifying, is what defines true character. Because in a world that often rewards silence, we need more people willing to speak up for those who have no voice.